Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. It was 6:47 a.m. when she stepped over my suitcase like it wasn't even there. Not around it. Not near it. Over it. Like my decision to leave didn't register in her world at all. Like I was a misplaced rug she had to step across on her way to whatever was more important than this marriage. And still, she didn't say a word. You'd think that kind of silence would be peaceful. It wasn't. It was thick. Sharp. The kind of silence that stabs without bleeding. For weeks before that moment, Laurel had been shutting down. No fights, no cheating scandals, no slammed doors. Just absence and presence. Her body was there, sure. But her eyes? Her smile? Her voice? Gone. Like someone had unplugged her spirit and left the shell to go through the motions. I'd talk to her, and she'd nod. I'd ask her what was wrong, and she'd shrug. I told her I missed her. She blinked twice and went back to scrolling. I swear, I started talking to the plants just to hear a response. She used to hum in the mornings. Now she walked around the kitchen in complete stillness, pouring coffee like a robot, sipping it without emotion, leaving lipstick marks on mugs she never noticed I cleaned. I stopped asking questions. It hurt too much when she didn't care enough to lie. You ever live with someone who makes you feel lonelier than when you were actually alone? That's what it became. A silent roommate who once held your heart, but now holds nothing but contempt in her silence. And me? I held on, because I thought maybe one day she'd break. She'd yell, cry, curse me out, anything to prove there was still fire underneath the ice. But nothing came. Just quiet dinners, quiet nights, quiet absence. Until this morning, when I placed the suitcase at the door, when I finally decided to leave, when I expected, maybe for once, she'd say something. A gasp, a plea, a cruel laugh. Anything. But no, she stepped over it. And just before she reached the doorknob, she paused, only for a second, and turned her head halfway. Her eyes met mine. Still no words. But they didn't need them. Because in that look, I saw it all. The final sentence of a story she'd stopped reading long ago. 3 days. That's how long I was gone before I turned back. Not because I missed her. Not because I wanted to forgive her or fight for our marriage or give her a second chance. I came back because I forgot my passport in the drawer next to our bed. That's it. Ironic, right? I finally made the most decisive move in years, and a stupid forgotten document pulled me right back into the orbit of the woman who no longer saw me. I didn't tell her I was coming. I didn't expect her to be home. It was the middle of the afternoon, and her car wasn't in the driveway. But when I stepped into the house, something felt off. Not wrong, just different. The lights were on. A half-full glass of wine was sitting on the table, and her shoes, the red heels she only wore on nights that meant something, were kicked off near the hallway rug. She hadn't been gone long. I walked upstairs fast, grabbed the passport, and turned to leave. But then, and I'll never know why, I heard a faint chime come from the kitchen. Her phone. A voicemail. The screen lit up with a message notification. One new message from Zach L. I froze. Zach wasn't a friend I recognized. And she never left her phone unlocked. It was just open. Sitting there, inviting. I should have walked out. I know that. But silence drives a man to places his dignity normally wouldn't. And curiosity? It's a wildfire when you've been living in emotional drought. I tapped the message. Just one. 38 seconds long. I hit play. And everything I thought I knew about the silence between us fell apart in that moment. Zach's voice came through clear, confident, relaxed. Hey baby, I left my charger under your side of the bed again. Don't worry about it. I'll swing by after your gym class thing. And, maybe we pick up where we left off last night. You were incredible. Call me when he's not around. My stomach turned so fast I thought I might throw up in her perfectly polished kitchen sink. That one voicemail held more words, more affection, than she'd given me in months. And worse, it was casual, comfortable, like it wasn't new. Like this had been going on while I was still apologizing for breathing too loudly around her. She didn't leave me with anger. She didn't scream or accuse or confess. No, she just handed her words to someone else and left me starving for them. I never stood a chance. I didn't wait for her to come back. I deleted the voicemail. Not to protect her. I didn't care about that anymore. I deleted it because I didn't want to listen to it again and convince myself it had been a dream. It wasn't. That message was real. Her silence was real. And now, finally, my choice was real. I packed the rest of my things. Quietly. Efficiently. just like she always wanted things to be. No confrontation, no drama, just gone. But before I walked out again, I left one last thing. Not a note, not a text, not even a voicemail. I put her red heels in the trash can outside. I didn't expect her to call. I figured the voicemail would go unnoticed, deleted, maybe. Or she'd assume she'd accidentally left the phone unlocked and forget all about it. But exactly 26 hours after I left the house for the second time, her name popped up on my screen. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. First, one word, why? Then a few hours later, did you take something? And then, finally, Vernon, I need to talk to you. Please. That please wasn't like her. Laurel didn't ask. She commanded. So I knew something had shifted. And I knew exactly what it was. She realized I had heard Zach's voicemail. She was scrambling now, trying to regain control of a story she thought she'd been writing alone. I didn't reply. Not right away. I wanted her to sweat. I wanted her to sit in the same silence she gave me for weeks. I imagined her pacing the living room, frantically checking drawers, maybe replaying the voicemail herself, wondering if I had forwarded it or saved it. She had no idea what I knew, or how much. That uncertainty was the only power I had left. 2 days passed. Then came a knock on the door of the cheap motel I was staying in. I didn't even flinch. I knew it was her. I watched through the peephole as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other, holding a small bag like she was delivering peace offerings. I opened the door halfway, and she looked up at me with eyes that were suddenly very good at pretending to care. I just want to talk, she said. That's all. I let her in. Not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted to hear the story she'd try to spin. I wanted to watch the performance. She sat on the edge of the motel bed, her hands folded like she was rehearsing for a courtroom drama. Then she began, soft and controlled. Vernon, I think there's been a misunderstanding. That word, misunderstanding, sent fire down my spine. She claimed Zach was just a friend, that the voicemail was taken out of context, that I must have felt hurt because we hadn't been connecting lately, and I was looking for clues that didn't exist. She even laughed, lightly, like we were both in on some joke about miscommunication. Then I handed her the charger. The same one Zach said he left under her side of the bed. Her face drained of color. The act slipped. She reached for it slowly, like holding it too fast would burn her hands. And then I saw it. That flicker of recognition. The moment she realized the web had snapped. She could lie all she wanted, but the charger in my hand was real. Just like Zach. Just like her betrayal. She said nothing. Finally, the same silence she had given me returned to her like a boomerang. I leaned forward, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "You can keep lying, Laurel, but now you're the only one listening." She stood up, shaky now. No more performances. She left without another word. But I wasn't done. Because I had one more place to visit, someone who needed to know exactly who Zach was, and how deep this went. I don't know what I expected when I typed Zach's full name into my phone. I'd held onto the voicemail long enough to catch his last name when he said it as part of a casual voicemail sign-off. He clearly didn't think it mattered. Or maybe he thought I'd never hear it. But I did. And once I had that one piece of information, the rest came fast. It took me 10 minutes to figure it out. Zach Lyman, personal trainer, lives in our city, and, to my disgust, works at the same gym I had been paying for, her gym. It was on my credit card. I checked the statements. She'd been attending weekly sessions for 6 months. Guess who her assigned trainer was? Yeah, him. It wasn't some random guy. It was someone I paid to get her in shape. Someone I probably nodded at once or twice in the parking lot. I could have screamed. But instead, I did what I always do. I got in my car, drove in silence, and parked outside the gym. I waited. I knew his schedule now. I'd memorized it in under an hour. Laurel wasn't there. But he was. He came out around 5:15 p.m., talking on the phone, grinning like he owned the world. And I saw it. The same confidence I used to have, back when I believed I was enough. I didn't jump him. That's not who I am. I'm not built for chaos. But I followed him. Not far, just to the smoothie bar across the street. I approached calmly, stood beside him in line, and said, "Zach, right?" He turned, still smiling, until he saw the look on my face. It was subtle, but there. He blinked twice, then tilted his head. "Do I know you?" "You've been training my wife," I said. "Laurel, Vernon's wife." His face didn't change much, but I saw it, the shift behind his eyes. A flicker of panic buried under the arrogance. He tried to cover it. Oh, hey, man. Yeah, I work with a lot of clients. Save it, I interrupted. I heard the voicemail. That's when his smile dropped completely. He looked over my shoulder, like checking if anyone else was around to hear this. I kept my voice low. I didn't want drama. I just wanted truth. I just want one answer, I said. Did you know she was married? He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He just shrugged and muttered. She said it was complicated. Complicated. The coward's word. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You've been sleeping with a married woman in a house another man pays for. A woman who can't even face a conversation but lets strangers do her talking for her. You think you're the better man?" He stepped back, palms up, defensive now. Look, I didn't know all the details, okay? She said things were ending. I didn't. You didn't care. I cut in. You saw the ring and didn't care. You heard my name and didn't care. You heard your name on a voicemail and still thought I'd never come knocking. I left before he could speak again. I didn't need an apology, and he didn't deserve forgiveness. But just as I reached the door, he said something that stopped me cold. She told me you left her. My breath caught. I turned. What? She told me you'd moved out months ago, that you ghosted her, that she was just trying to rebuild. And just like that, I understood why she never said a word when I left. Why she didn't fight. Why she didn't explain. She already had a story prepared for him. I was the villain in a version of our life she handed to someone else to make herself feel better. I didn't respond. I walked away. But as I got back in the car, one thought hit me harder than anything Zach could have said. If she lied to him about me, what else had she been rewriting? I didn't go home after confronting Zach. I wasn't ready to walk back into that house, even if it technically still had my name on the lease. I spent the next night in my car, parked near the lake, listening to the silence that had once broken me. But now, it gave me clarity. I realized something that kept digging under my skin. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd rewritten me. I wasn't a husband who was neglected and ignored. I was now the guy who left, the ghost, the excuse she used to feel better about herself. But the part that burned worst? I believed it. Somewhere in all of this, I had let her turn me into exactly what she needed me to be, the problem. I went back to the house the following afternoon when I was sure she'd be at work. I didn't know what I was looking for. Closure? Proof? I don't know. But something in me needed to see our home one last time. Not just the furniture and dishes, but the version of our life I thought we had. I moved slowly through the kitchen, the living room, the stairs. Everything was exactly where she had left it. No sign that she missed me. No sign that she even noticed I'd been gone. But when I got to our bedroom, I noticed the closet door was slightly open. Something white poked out from underneath a stack of blankets. I pulled it free, a notebook. One of those faux leather ones people buy when they plan to get their life together. It wasn't hidden well. It was almost like she wanted someone to find it. The first few pages were lists. Grocery things. Budget notes. Then dates. Appointment times. All painfully normal. But then came a page marked June 4th. I almost told him. My heart skipped. I read every word. She wasn't writing to herself. She was writing about me. Paragraphs filled with observations, judgments, excuses. According to her, I was needy, insecure, emotionally exhausting. She painted me like some fragile, whiny man who couldn't handle real life. One entry read, "He keeps asking what's wrong. How do you explain that someone's presence can be what's wrong?" Another one, "I wonder if he'd even notice if I disappeared. He clings to me like I'm his last lifeline." It's suffocating. Each page chipped away at the man I thought I was. Not because her words were true, but because I let her think they were. I'd spent months apologizing for things I never did, believing I was too sensitive, too soft, too much. But this wasn't confusion. This was cruelty. The last entry was dated 4 days before I left. It said, "I don't think I'll have to break it off. He's already halfway out the door. I just have to wait." That was the part that shattered me. Not the affair, not the lies, but the waiting, the patience. She didn't just stop loving me. She calculated my exit. She nurtured my pain until I gave her the ending she could blame on me. I sat there for an hour, holding that journal like it was made of glass. Every word was poison, but I couldn't stop drinking it. I needed to know how low she saw me, how easily she twisted love into guilt and loyalty into weakness. And that's when I made a decision, one I never thought I'd make. I wasn't going to burn the journal. I wasn't going to throw it away. I was going to deliver it, To the one person in her life who thought she walked on water. Her mother. Laurel always spoke about her mother like she was carved from marble. Elegant, untouchable, always right. I'd only met Evelyn a handful of times over the years, and every visit left me feeling like a mismatched sock in a room full of pressed suits. She was the kind of woman who offered smiles with no warmth behind them, asked questions that weren't really questions, and gave advice disguised as criticism. Still, something in me needed her to see what her daughter had become. Not because I expected sympathy, I just wanted the record corrected. Laurel had turned me into a villain. It was time someone read the original script. I called ahead, said I needed 5 minutes. She sounded surprised but agreed. Her voice had that same brittle calm Laurel had, as if every conversation was a transaction. I drove over with the journal in the passenger seat, strapped in like precious cargo. The closer I got, the more my nerves twisted. I knew it was a strange move, bringing a mother evidence of her daughter's deception, but when you've been made small enough for long enough, the need to be seen outweighs logic. Evelyn answered the door in a cream blouse and pearl earrings, like she was expecting a church fundraiser, not a soon-to-be ex-son-in-law with a journal full of emotional shrapnel. "Vernon," she said, lips pursed. I must admit, I wasn't expecting this. I handed her the notebook without speaking. Her eyes narrowed as she took it. She didn't invite me in. She just stood there, flipping through the first few pages while I watched her face carefully for any sign. Disgust, denial, maybe even shame. Instead, she gave me something worse, indifference. "I see she's still journaling," Evelyn said flatly. "She started that in high school. Therapist's suggestion. Though back then, the entries were mostly about how much she hated me." I blinked. "Excuse me." She closed the journal and held it like it weighed nothing. Laurel's always needed someone to be the problem. First it was me, then it was her father, then her college roommate. "I suppose now it's you. Don't take it personally." I didn't know what to say. I came there hoping for a human reaction, maybe a moment of realization. Instead, I got a woman so well-versed in her daughter's toxicity that it no longer fazed her. "She told Zach I abandoned her," I said quietly. "She's rewriting everything." Evelyn nodded, as if I'd just informed her the sky was still blue. She always rewrites things. She rewrote her childhood into a sob story. Claimed I neglected her because I worked full-time. Claimed her father cheated, which he didn't, by the way. I stayed through all of it, but it was never enough. You know the type, Vernon. The kind of person who needs to be the center of the storm so badly, they'll become the lightning just to keep the attention. I stepped back, my throat dry. "So you knew." "I knew she had issues. I just assumed you did too, if you married her." That one landed harder than anything Laurel had written. I turned to leave, my head spinning. Evelyn didn't follow me out. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't even thank me for the journal. She simply stepped back inside and shut the door with a quiet click. Not rude, just final. I sat in my car for a long time after that, staring at the wheel, realizing that the rot I'd been choking on didn't start with Laurel. It had roots, deep, wide, and generations old. For the first time, I didn't feel weak. I felt angry. Not the loud kind. The cold, precise kind. I had spent so much time trying to be understanding that I let everyone around me decide what role I should play. Husband, ghost, villain. But I was done playing. I didn't tell Laurel I was coming. I just showed up. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't closure. It wasn't even about the journal or Zach or the months of silence that had drowned our marriage in slow motion. It was about reclaiming the narrative. For the first time since all this began, I wasn't walking into a conversation to beg for answers. I wasn't showing up to patch something broken. I was there to tell her that I wasn't the man she had rewritten into her side story. I was the man walking out of the final chapter, and I wanted the last line. She opened the door wearing that look, the one she always used when she was caught off guard but wanted to pretend she wasn't. Hair tied up, no makeup, holding a cup of tea like it was armor. "Vernon," she said, like she had just remembered my name. "I'm not here to fight," I said before she could start deflecting. "I just want to say a few things. Then I'll go." She stepped aside, and I walked into what used to be our home. It felt colder now. Not in temperature, but in energy, like the place itself had finally realized the love inside it was fake and decided not to pretend anymore. The pictures were still up. My slippers still by the door. She hadn't touched any of it. But none of it felt like mine. I sat on the edge of the couch. She stood across from me, arms folded. Defensive. Tense. I could feel her rehearsing whatever spin she'd planned. I read the journal, I said calmly. Every word. She didn't flinch. Not at first. But her eyes flicked, just once, to the hallway, probably thinking about where she'd left it. Whether I had taken it with me. Whether I'd shown it to anyone. I know what you told Zach, I added. And I know what you told yourself. Now her expression shifted. Not guilt. Not even fear. Just irritation. As if I was a problem she'd already emotionally processed and didn't want to revisit. You made me the villain, I continued. In your stories. In your silence. In the version of our marriage you sold to people who didn't know me. Vernon. No. I cut her off, more forcefully than I intended. You don't get to speak yet. Because for weeks, months, years, I begged you to. I sat in this house and asked what was wrong, what I could fix, how I could show up better. And you gave me silence. You watched me shrink. You waited for me to give up so you wouldn't have to be the one who walked out. And then when I finally did, you lied. She looked away then. Just slightly. Enough to tell me I was right. I'm not here to change your mind about me, I said, softer now. And I'm not here to be cruel. I just want you to hear this clearly. You didn't break me. You bruised me. You humiliated me. But you don't get the last word. Not in your journal. Not with Zach. Not with your mother. You don't get to write me out. She didn't respond. She just stood there. For once, no shrug. No smirk. No sigh. Just stillness. I stood up, ready to leave. But before I reached the door, she said something I wasn't prepared for. Do you think I ever loved you? I turned slowly. No, I said. I think you loved being loved by me. But that's not the same thing. And with that, I walked out. This time, for the last time. 3 months have passed since I walked out of that house for the last time, and I won't lie to you. The silence didn't end the moment I closed the door. It followed me. At first, it clung like a shadow, whispering doubts in the quiet moments. I'd stare at the ceiling in unfamiliar rooms, wondering if I had overreacted, if I had imagined it all, if maybe I was the fragile, needy man she wrote about in that journal. But here's what I've learned since then. When someone constantly rewrites your story, you start to forget your own voice. I spent years believing I was a burden simply for asking to be seen. I apologized for being human. I shrunk so someone else could feel bigger. That's not love. That's erasure. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I stayed quiet for so long. I learned that silence isn't peace. It's a slow kind of punishment. And I forgave myself for not leaving sooner. Healing didn't come in some cinematic moment. It came gradually, through routine, through conversations with people who remembered the real me, and through the quiet, steady realization that I deserved better than conditional love. As for Laurel, she never reached out again. No apology. No second voicemail. Just more silence. But this time, it didn't crush me. It freed me. Her absence finally matched the emotional distance she had cultivated for years. And for the first time, her silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like permission to rebuild. A few weeks ago, I went back to the lake. Not to sit in my car or relive anything, but just to walk, to breathe. And for the first time, I felt like the man I used to be. Maybe even better. Because now, I know I won't hand my voice over to someone who doesn't value it. I haven't started dating again, not because I'm afraid, but because I'm enjoying the sound of my own thoughts. And I don't need someone to fill the silence anymore. I've learned how to listen to myself. So yeah, she let me go. But I didn't fall apart. I found the version of myself that she tried to write out of the story. And this time, I'm the one holding the pen. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever felt erased or rewritten in someone else's story, share your moment in the comments. The turning point, the discovery, or the confrontation that made you say, no more. And don't forget, your voice matters here.